And we're live. Well, Yashar, welcome to the IBS team.
Thank you.
It's exciting to have you, and excited to officially be a part of your, just from where we started our friendship, being here on the Real Talk 4 years ago, and now being here, actually a part of it. I mean, I never knew this would happen, but things come to fruition. But I am really excited to have you aboard. But also, as I want the audience to know, is who is Yashar?
Yeah.
And then we'll get to what you're doing here, of course, and what everything you're going to come bring with your insights and experience into IBS Electronics. But who is Yashar, and how did you get into the electronics field?
Yeah. Very excited to be here. Thank you again, for the invitation. But this time as a team member, I remember last time 3-4 years ago when I was here, with Jens, the founder and the former CEO of Sourceability. It was in the capacity of a guest. And we were both at a time, very much impressed. And obviously we were following IBS for many years, and you sort of like revived that, I would say, with your podcast program and all that. And this time in the capacity of obviously a team member, for the audience, I have joined a company, as you said, and I let you tell me, that you're going to introduce to the audience, what's my capacity is going to be. But in general, I have been very excited, to be here. As you and I have talked in the past, I'm an electronic components or electronics enthusiast, from my early days, as a teenager, grow up, just being in the electronics industry. And then that led me to go study electronics engineering and graduating. And, the last 25 years, essentially since 1999, one way or the other, I've been either in the distribution or manufacturing or the design, and that's essentially been my world. That's what really excites me, and it's an industry and it's a domain that I'm probably never going to leave, and hopefully make it everlasting here at IBS.
Yeah, I think what we connected was really on our passion for data and technology, and really revolutionizing, democratizing the industry that we've all grown up in, right?
Yeah.
We've given, even from my side, coming from a family business and really grown up in it and seeing how to make a difference. Technology is changing the world, and I think that's really where the commonalities of really comes to that side. That's my curiosity that leads me to the points of technology, and always, talking to each other, what's going on, technology is going on, but really bring that synergy together of how we can really make a difference and lead this next couple of years in IBS into that data and technology driven kind of bespoke tailored service for distribution and supply chain. Because overall, we know in the last 4 or 5 years, the supply chain was, it broke, there was a lot of inferences between the pandemic and challenges, capacities. But the number one thing is the technology for every single company is different. The communication is poor. The way we do business, even though we're the foundation of all the hardware that powers the world, we're just very antiquated in the way we do it. Of course, there is the 5%, the 1% of the manufacturers that are very forward thinking with the technology. The majority of the middle to small manufacturing are still working on kind of antiquated platforms and foundations that they're still having challenges doing the procurement, supply chain, ERP, MRP. But overall, it's like, how can IBS come and make a difference into that? And as well as you saw some of my vision and coming in here. So really on your capacity coming in as a CRO, what are some of the things that you see within the company that you saw that excited you to come over, work with IBS Electronics, and as well as what you see for the future of what we can really make a difference into the supply chain and really be a difference maker in the industry?
Yeah, absolutely. Great question and great comments, by the way, with how the supply chain industry, for the electronics industry, at least in terms of the components and beyond, how it broke, multiple times. It wasn't just during the COVID. It wasn't just 21 and 22. Let's not forget the 2018, right?
Yeah. 2001.
Sure,
everybody knows. 2009, there was a lot of breaks.
Sure.
A lot of breaks,
and I'm just referring to the most recent ones, right? Because,
correct.
A lot of times people thinking just 21 and 2, of course, they were more acute, but we've had cycle of these, right? I go back to answer your question in terms of joining IBS, I go back to a little bit earlier years, right? Where I had the opportunity to join, my former employer, with the leadership of Jens, at Sourceability, right? And at the time, we really wanted to make a difference, right? The idea really was to be able to participate and bring added value, to the customers, right? To the participants, to the business, right? And it was using the power of technology. And at the time, we really wanted to do that. And we thought that we would do that by, as you said, democratizing the information, to the user, to the consumers. And we did that with the power of our e-commerce shop, with the power of the tools in the e-commerce shop, and all the other things that went beyond with the partnerships with other companies and all the services that we produce there. So there's been a wealth of experience that I've had, in the last 8 years on the software side and the data side and the technology side, right? And through your podcast, I became to understand that you're very yourself personally, enthusiastic about it, and that very well, the only way that we're going to lead and we're going to be able to participate, with various different aspects of the supply chain of electronics industry and electronic components industry is going to be through the power of technology, power of data. And as we saw, and we continue to see, not one company, not one technology is going to grab it all. This is one thing that after 25 years, and especially in the last 7, 8 years, I am more than ever certain about, right? There are many different participants on the ERP side, on the various different aspects of buying, selling, aggregators, design companies in terms of the printed circuit board designs. I'm not going to mention names. It's just simply, I remember, back at my former employer, we had this PowerPoint, and we had a sheet where we had put all the participants' names, right? And at some point, there was no place anymore. And this was only the software participants. All the companies that they were, offering services, one way or the other, to the supply chain of electronics, and they were a software company or a data company. Yeah. So it's so fragmented. It's so much. It's so huge. So no one company is ever going to be able to answer that. And therefore, it means that there's a lot of opportunities. Yeah. And through my discussions with yourself and understanding, IBS's core power, core competency, its history for the last, 40 years, it was very obvious for me that there's a lot of opportunity with the technology stack that already exists here, that we're going to be able to innovate and find new opportunities, new solutions with the power of technology and data for the customers, for the business partners. And that was really the number one reason for me, to follow your leadership and join here, to make sure that I still continue to be applicable and participating and be excited about being in this industry.
Well, first of all, thank you, because overall it's been a quite challenging last 3-4 years, even though business has been up and down and the volatility, but also building, who thought, I would say supply chain distribution and components would be a much more software-driven business today. I mean, who thought when I started, back, in the 90s, when I even started coming into this business, how we would be working off of this, because I saw a lot of changes when the .com happened, 2000, the web shops, again, the consumer end started changing, and then how is that going to disrupt? But actually, it didn't disrupt them, because there's a lot of good, successful e-commerce with the DigiKeys and Mauser. They got very successful through what they've done through and there are some of the leaders in how they built their infrastructure to the manufacturer to be able to stocking, selling, and very innovative what they've done. And sometimes it's like, how do we follow those? They're kind of guerrillas. How do we follow that? How can they have money? They have this. But again, there's room for many different players in this industry. And that's one thing from my vision, as we've discussed, is like this industry is going to grow at average of 10 to 12% rate year over year till the end of this decade, which will be a $1 trillion industry. The second traded most commodity in the world will be components, semiconductors. And it's getting more and more. And that's really what I see is the only way you're going to be able to facilitate that is through technology. Yeah. And is to parse it, democratize it, learn from it, and understand how the value is, because there are so many companies innovating today. There's so many manufacturers there. And how can we really work it? So that's why I want to kind of get into this a little bit on what, for yourself, what interests you in it? Again, we talked about the technology, but what are you saying your forte of really bringing IBS, but what is a fun fact about Yashar? What is something that, some people don't know about you?
Yeah. Well, I'm going to be a little bit boring there, but at the same time, try to also surprise the audience. Obviously, the boring factor of it, it's really been all about the electronics industry, right? I really, since I'm a teenager, since I'm 12, 13 years old, and I've done a couple of different, pieces, on introducing myself and, my passion through the Forbes, that I was a member for the last 3 years, where really my world of, let's say professional career had started when I was a teenager, right? And really has been the electronics industry, electronic components and all that, right? I don't want to go into the personal sort of like introduction here beyond that, that's sort of like, probably is beyond
What's
this
the fun
audience
fact for like the curiosity? That's what I'm coming back to.
Right, exactly. Fun fact for the curiosity, right? Going back to that, right? I think for me has been, really interesting to see that with all the names that you mentioned, right? With all the big, the e-commerce shops, the different solution providers in the technology, in the software within our industry, right? I'm talking about within the electronics industry. And it's not just the electronic components, as you know, because no final product, is going to be built just by semiconductors, right? There's the whole ecosystem of, hardwares and passives and electromechanicals and electrical and all sorts of other things that go in there. And that industry, by the way, is already above $1 trillion,
Correct.
right?
Correct.
I think what has been really interesting is to see so many different enthusiastic, let's say, individuals coming to our industry, whether they grew up out of our industry or they came in there, and they thought that they're able to address the whole thing with one software, right? With one platform or with one, let's say, service and offering, right? Seeing them to be successful, but recognizing that, okay, there is more opportunity existing beyond, what is out there. So as I said, I am convinced there would be a gradual transformation of our industry. It's not like the, let's say, the transportation industry where Uber and Lyft changed it overnight and that's it. It was that's where it was, right? It's a lot more sophisticated industry, right? It already, with all of the ecosystem of products and product categories, is over $1 trillion. The semiconductor, as you said, only the semiconductor will become $1 trillion on its own by the end of this decade, right? Which means that this industry, this, as you said, the second most traded, product in the world, is going to be so dominant with the geopolitics, that is in play, sadly, but makes it, for us more interesting, more fun, at least in my view, that I've been a participant for the last, 30 years, right? And understanding that there are so many opportunities to disrupt it, right? And the fun factor for me here at IBS would be how we going to do it, how we did it at my previous employer, with all the bits and pieces of the software and the technology that we invented and put it out there, which ended up allowing the company to move forward to where it is right now, and recognizing that what we are going to be able to bring in here at IBS, but understanding that we're not going to disrupt it on our own and everything. We're going to be a participant here, hopefully a significant participant, something that allows and makes the industry more fun, brings value-add services for the customers and the suppliers and the business partners, but also see how others and other companies and other new participants are going to come in, and add value and move that forward, right? So that's really what I'm really looking forward to be able to, enjoy and have fun and participate and, be applicable.
I mean, yeah, I can't probably agree. There's so much to unpack what you just went through, so much to go into that. I agree with, echo everything you said, the excitement, the change, the dynamic, the landscape that's been changed, but as well as, really, what really drives you, and as well as I know you've been a very worldly person living in different continents. So,
Yes.
How many different continents have you lived in?
Yeah, well, all the three major continents. I was born in Europe, in UK, and my career started actually in UK, where I was a sales executive, decades ago. Just focused at the UK market and Ireland, and I went and lived in Eastern Europe, in Germany, and then roughly around 12, 13 years ago, moved to Asia. So that was like 9 years of Europe, essentially everywhere in Europe, right? Eastern Europe, UK, and Germany. And then was out in Asia, out of Hong Kong and Shenzhen for 6 years, right? So enjoyed that a lot. It was always a dream to be able to be there.
Hong Kong is a great city.
Hong Kong is a great city.
One of my favorite cities. Yeah.
And it gets, if you're in our industry, if you're in the electronic components, and if that's something that really excites you, which, it is for me, that excitement gets compounded by being across the river, in Shenzhen, right? So that was really, profound in terms of really learning, and having that opportunity for 6 years. And then from there, coming to here, not back here, because I've always been, living in one way or the other in the United States. But, for the last 8 years, have been located here, in the United States. So that essentially, makes me a worldly person. And I really continue to enjoy that and be part of that. And that's what really excites me. And then that's really the opportunity that this industry brings in, and also the complexity, right? It's so diverse, with so many different countries, with so many different participants. And, and what we think about technology and software here, it's a whole different ball game in Asia, like in China. That's sometimes it feels like that they are a decade ahead of us, right? But again, I think that's really the opportunity, and what's exciting.
Well, it's exciting, exactly. It's like your point of views of being cultured, living in different areas, especially in our industry between North America, Europe, and also Asia, and living in Hong Kong, the heart, and the Silicon Valley, which was Shenzhen of electronics. It's very exciting. So you've been well diversed into that area.
Yes.
Really now coming into the role of a CRO, a Chief Revenue Officer here at IBS, really, what are your, I would say the first couple objectives that you're going to do? And again, coming to any role, objectives for you to come into the company for the next, 3 to 6 to year, you're going to really see on the macro level for the company and really where you can take it to. And where do you see immediately we can already start, enjoying some benefits from that because of infrastructure, process, what we have going on, or what areas that you can help lead that? Yeah.
So again, for me, it was, I really felt that I had come to the end of my tenure at my previous employer, and it is very important to be able to participate, right? That is with somebody with my experience, in the last 25 years, with the industry, with my educational background, with what I've done in the last 7-8 years, within the technology and software, with the business partners, right? Not just the customers, the OEMs, the EMSs, the suppliers, the distributors, and the brokers, also, with the various different business partners, that I have had the relationship with, the opportunity to work with, learn from, all the way from design, to NPI, to mass production, to services and repair and beyond. It was really important for me to be able to be part of a company where I can participate and help them expand, to a larger network of business partners, and help them expand their revenue, right? Which is the reason why, I accepted this opportunity to be a Chief Revenue Officer here. And I think IBS has a unique narrative and a story, with its foundation, with your father, with Bob, being the founder of the company, where you guys started, with passive components. The company is International Bovine Systems, right? And you guys had the opportunity of looking at beyond just a semiconductor and, larger, broader spectrum of product categories. And the fact that you've been so enthusiastic with the technology, with the software and data. And I think, with coupling that, with my knowledge and with my global, experience, to try to really bring, to the world, and to the customers and the suppliers out there, the opportunity of further introducing IBS, expanding IBS's business opportunities, and for the customers and suppliers to benefit, within this from the value add service of IBS. That's really what I'm really looking forward to be able to achieve here and move forward, hopefully, in the next couple of years.
Well, you articulated my vision of that position very well. Thank you. No, but overall, it is, we were excited. Of course, but again, nothing is easy. We have some work to do ahead of us. But no matter what, it is really understanding, who are we, what are we trying to achieve, and the objective of, helping, supporting, and making the electronic supply chain a better place, more seamless, be able to supply. Because my excitement is, selling a product to a really cool gadget that really changes the world, from the point of aerospace. We have SpaceX, there's Teslas, there's the Andurils, also in Asia, a lot of the different gadgets that are really changing the way we live today, the way science is growing, from the way we move our transportation, from everything that's changing. That's really what excites me. It's like, we're not only selling components, but we are helping change and evolve and move the world forward.
Great point. Yes.
Yeah, and that really comes back to the point of my original, really understanding the technology, which I really think that you can really complement is the technology that you built, before you, the experience that you've had, and as well as what we built from our basis of our technology, because that's been my biggest, baby for the last 3-4 years is building the infrastructure. But again, we're not finished. It's just the beginning. The foundation is set. It's now enhancing and moving forward. And how do you think now moving forward, what are your expectations moving forward of how the communication will work externally with customers, and what are their wants and needs, how customers' wants and needs are changing? What's your thoughts on the present day and the future of customers' wants and needs from a supplier or distributor coming into their supply chain?
Yeah, I think every customer that I have been in touch with, right, have always been, that was essentially the driver, at the previous a place where I worked at, where they really wanted to be able to have as less touch as possible, but continue to be in communication with you as a supplier, and to benefit, and only really have the opportunity or request the opportunity to be in touch if there was a need, right? Mm-hmm. So they essentially wanted to be able to make sure that, and that was essentially, as I said, was a driver of the set of a piece of different software that we build, whether it was from the BOM analysis or the access all the way to an e-commerce shop and the market intelligence, and all of that, right? We're at a world where we do a lot of things, not necessarily having to speak to an individual, or just if needed sort of like escalate and get to that individual to talk to us, right? So a lot of customers are dealing with so many different SKUs, with so many different part numbers, with so many different builds, right? And they really want to be able to achieve that in a timely manner, right, with as less touch as possible, with as less trouble as possible, right? Whether if it's during the allocation or the non-allocation side, right? So I think being able to service the customers with a very high expectation in a seamless fashion, right? Where it enhances their lives and allows them to, get along, and obviously do their job, what they have to do in terms of procurement and, having the sound supply chains to move on, and have get along with the rest of their lives with as less trouble as possible is what, in the end of the day, we have to be able to, achieve, right? It's almost, trying to be able to offer B2C services in a extreme B2B world, right? Because what I always say is that this is not a B2B world, it's an extreme B2B world, right? And I think going back to the analogy of like the transportation, with the disruption that happened, with the Ubers and the Lyfts, how do you introduce that in such a sophisticated world, of the electronic component distribution, where there's so many different parts of it. It's extreme B2B, but, try to participate in a gradual fashion, right? I'm 100% certain come in the next 5, 7, 10, 15, 20 years, this is going to be a completely different landscape, in terms of what the customer's expectation from the distribution is going to be in compared to what it is now. And for people like us that have been in this industry for 25, 30 years, there already is such a big difference to when we started 20, 25 years ago. So as much as that people like to say, oh, this is a very clunky old industry and no transformation has happened, right? I think that transformation has been happening. It's just been happening in such a slower and it's going to continue to be that way. And let us not forget, the technology is changing, right? We're talking about the .com, the internet, and the e-commerce and all that now being at the age of AI, which we still don't fully understand how it's going to change, the landscape.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, we are the roaring 20s of 2020s is the roaring technology revolution. You had 1920s, but there was a plague at the end of that, so hopefully that doesn't happen. But the Roaring 20s, I think the pandemic lit the fuse, and we're on this rush, and now AI is and that's a lot of things. We were still very elementary in AI, even though we're trying to use it in some flow processes and some things of analytical. But it's going to change the way we make decision making and process and data. But I am excited. I'm excited to have you on board. I'm excited to be working with you and really traveling the world and really going. And number one thing is listening to the customers, because I think that's one thing that I've done is listening to the customers' wants and needs, and how can we enhance our systems and tools and our services to what the customer's demands are. We can't do everything, but again, it's also, if we don't listen, it's hard for us to be able to serve.
Correct.
right? So we are a service company based off what the customer's needs are, and be able to give them that kind of type of concierge service they need, and that we all need, because I think technology has changed everything so fast paced. We all want the concierge service, from the consumer end to whatever we buy on our phones, to the
Correct.
concierge service Amazons, to
Correct.
the challenge and having somebody there to give you that. And price is always of concern, but the service level is what we all need. Right?
Well said.
The service level.
Well said.
is what we
Yes.
need. So.
Yeah.
But welcome to the team, and I'm excited to do some more of these with you as we move forward and go from there. So, any last words?
No, thank you. I really appreciate the opportunity, and really look forward to be able to participate and do more podcasts like you said, what you said. And yes, at the end I would want to acknowledge that what you mentioned in terms of what the expectation of every individual is, also in their professional life, as a buyer, within the electronic components industry, is to be able to have that concierge service. And what, we're going to try to be able to achieve, with the power of technology within the IBS. And I'm really looking forward to be a part of that.
Yeah, that sounds great. Well, till next time.
Appreciate it.
We'll
Thank
see
you.
you.
Thank you.
And we're out.